Ladies and gentlemen, new and old, welcome to another episode of The Breakdown with your host, BaseDaKID, Tony, the Pugilist Boy, and we are the children of the game. Now, look, Tony, there's been some complaints, all right? Apparently, I'm rude towards you. I don't listen to you when you speak. I just cut you off. So how are you? And I need to do better. So yeah, how are you? How's your weekend been? What's good?
Listen, my friend, I am not taken aback by those comments. I don't feel any of them are really that truthful because I don't feel aggrieved by the way that we communicate with one another on this platform. I feel like, we bounce well off one another. I think if we agreed on everything, it'd probably be a boring show. So it's good that we come with different viewpoints and we respectfully allow each other to give each other conversation during the show.
All right. Well, I mean, I can only go by the comments. I have to do better apparently. But if you're happy, then cool.
Of
We
course, sir. Of course. I'm always.
keep it as it is.
I feel blessed to have you on, to be on the same platform with you, Base, because ultimately you have your own platform. You've allowed me to come and work with you. You're the hard worker. I'm just giving my grey beard worth of knowledge to this whole shebang. You're the one that really does the meat and the drink. And viewers, let me give you the undisputed truth. Bass is the real driving force behind this thing.
Oof. I mean, thank you. Wasn't expecting that. So, all right, let's stop the loving because we got some work to do. Before we get started, though, just to let everyone know, um, I did it. So, for those of you who have been waiting, I got the Frank Warren interview. It happened earlier on today. Now, it wasn't super spicy purely because a lot of the stuff that obviously were talking points before aren't as much of talking points now, so you can't really drag up too much old stuff. Um, that being said, I did get a do me a favor in there, so I think it would be worth watching. Hopefully that will get uploaded tomorrow. It has gone to the team. They're obviously going to do their stuff, and yeah, so we'll get that. Hopefully, get that one uploaded in the morning or the afternoon. Also, did a big interview with Denzel Bentley as well. Big up to him, and also Nick Ball as well. I got a few minutes from Nick Ball. He's in a great fight with Isaac Dogbe. I think that's going to be a tremendous fight on the 18th of November. So yeah, big up. You man are done for. Well, it was in escrow. I managed to secure it, and I didn't get cussed out. So I think I can get a second one. And hopefully by that time there will be more things for me to to challenge, but also to give praise where due, because I did give Frank a lot of praise for some of the recent cards that he's put on, and it was only right because they've been very good. With that being said, we're going to go into one of them in a little bit, but as always, since we like to do main event, undercards, main event, we're going to start with, obviously, I guess probably the biggest fight of the weekend. Actually, Tony, do you think maybe to let more people be on the show, maybe we should save Wood Warrington till last and do
Yeah,
Zerdo?
for
Yeah.
sure, for sure. That's the biggest fight of the weekend.
Okay. All right.
I have to bring a caveat into tonight's program. I'm afraid to say my viewing this weekend was very minimalistic. Very minimalistic. I am fortunate. I mean, fortunately for me, I had family engagements and other events going on this weekend, which meant that my whole weekend was pretty chocker. And that meant that I ended up seeing very little boxing. I saw none of it live. I saw a few bits here and there on Sunday afternoon. I tried my best to catch up last night. And so really, I apologize, viewers. I will do better. But today, I'm going to fall heavily on the shoulders of my good pal, Mr. Bass.
All right. All right. Cool. Well, look, seeing as I know that you did watch Zerdo and Joe Smith Jr., we'll start there.
No, I'm just uploading. Please, just move on. Go to one more, and I'll have it ready by the time you get to it.
Okay. Okay, right. So if we're not going to talk about that one, okay, I know what we'll talk about first. So let's talk about um probably what was maybe the most controversial fight of the weekend, although I don't particularly think it was. But in the minds of Eddie Hearn, I think he was not happy. Terry Harper versus Cecilia Brækhus. Now that was the chief support co-main to the Wood Warrington card, so I'm going to assume that most people would have watched that because it was right before the main event. Now with this fight, it's weird that Eddie seemed to have it so heavily favored in Terry Harper's Terry Harper's favor of watching in the arena. I would like to get a second opinion apart from Sonny Edwards, who usually I think Sonny's great on commentary, but even he I think was showing some major bias towards Terry. Now in the first round, I had Cecilia Brækhus winning the first round just off of a more accurate and active jab, just being better controlled in her shell, sort of, taking a lot on the gloves. And, she was a little ploddy, but she was, to me, just being a bit more effective and a bit more controlled. So ultimately, I'll tell you the way that I scored the fight. I scored the first round to Cecilia Brækhus. I scored rounds 2, 3, and 4 to Terry Harper. I scored round 5 to Cecilia Brækhus. I scored round 6 to Terry Harper. And then from 7 to 10, I scored that as a clean sweep for Brækhus. I had it 94-96. In the first instances, I felt like Terry was boxing and moving well in the first few rounds. But once she let it get up close from about round 5 onwards, she just basically made it more of a dogfight. Now, even though that's not necessarily Cecilia Brækhus's wheelhouse, she's just a naturally bigger, more solid woman to Terry, and it's evident. Even though she started her career at 140 pounds, let's not forget Terry's not long removed from being at 130. It's 154 weight limit, and she comes in just around about 150 pounds. So realistically, she's probably eating her way to 150. She looks great on the scales, but she's just too small for the weight class. Now, look, you don't have to always be at the weight of the weight limit in order to be competitive. Clearly not, because she's got a world title at that weight division. But when you look at the game, a lot of people are on the weight bullying thing, for lack of a better phrase, and you do have it in such a way that you'll get people coming down from 170 pounds, 175 pounds, going down to 154. So when you're someone that's probably a lot closer to like 135, 140, just as an individual, you're always going to have that size disadvantage. So yeah, when she sort of fought in the pocket, she didn't have a great inside game. Cecilia was just sort of controlling everything on the inside, catching a lot on the arms and gloves, working good body shots on the inside. It was never one of those dominant performances on either side. Like, it was one of those fights where realistically you could have given it 96-94 either way, but there was never more than 6 rounds that either person won. So even looking at the card that was given to Terry Harper, 97-93, there's no way that she won 7 rounds in the fight. You might be able to give her 5 or 6 potentially, but you couldn't give her more than 6, because Cecilia clearly won 4 and Terry clearly won 4. So there was only really like 2 rounds you could probably say that was up for debate. That was kind of how I saw it. I immediately tweeted out after Eddie Hearn's rant in the post-fight interview regarding that fight, saying how it was shambolic and it was horrible officiating and incompetence and blah blah blah. I said, look, Eddie, you're doing way too much here. To be honest, Terry didn't win. She's lucky to have even got the draw. That was my opinion. And looking around a lot of Twitter or X, a lot of people seem to feel the same way. So yeah, I guess both Eddie and Sonny need to readdress this one, have a look again, and maybe come out in the interview and maybe they don't change their opinion. Who knows? Maybe they actually do believe what they saw at the time, but that's just not what everyone else saw. Tony, what do you think? Oh, okay. He's okay. So basically, for those who don't know, Tony's in the back uploading some footage for the show, which he does from the goodness of his heart every week. However, he's using his other phone to do it, and if he turns on his mic, there's a very nasty echo that appears, which we don't want to hear. So that's why he's muted at the minute. So oh, he looks like he's good to go.
I am indeed. I am indeed. So yeah, again, I have to kowtow to what you said in terms of the full fight. I did manage to see highlights of the fight, and from what I saw, which can be sometimes skewed based on the provider, they sometimes obviously show more highlights of the fighter they want you to see most of. I saw a fairly even fight, but I saw selected highlights of certain rounds, and in fact, there were certain rounds which I didn't see at all. But what I did notice was clearly that Cecilia Breakhouse was much bigger in frame in the ring. She's natural to that weight. Terry having jumped up, was it 3 weights to get to that weight? So look, Cecilia is a stalwart of that division. She has an amazing world title pedigree. She's won 26 of 28 world titles. Think about that. 26 of 28 world titles she's won in this modern age of women boxing. That's a phenomenal feat that she's achieved. So this was by no mean feat, an easy task for Terry. I have to give her props for taking this on, because it was, as I said, no mean feat. But yeah, from what I saw, it did look like the second half of the fight, at least, Cecilia had far better of the working side and seemed to have Terry sort of on skates at certain points, just flinging her around the ring.
Okay, listen, guys. Before we jump into Zerdo and Joe Smith Jr., we haven't done the roll call, so I'm gonna get to that right now. Muller was #1 today. Thank you very much for being there. Bless up to you. Chasman, Philip Answer, obviously you are here as well in the building. G Chain is also in the building. J Lanks, you man are done for. Skyliner, the editor, and the man, the hardest working guy on X. Big ups to you. Untraceable as well, Declan, and Bigsy Biggs as well, and Hot Pies. Salute to you. Yes, I'm in agreement with most of what you said. Like I said, I had it 94, 96 to break house. You had it 97, 93 when you. Oh wait, no, sorry, that was Philip who had it 97, 93. I mean, yeah, it was one of those fights. It was just really sort of it was messy, but it was tight, and it was a close fight. So for anyone to just assume that one person steamrolled it just was a bit of a crazy idea, in my opinion. But yes, okay, so now let's move on. Now, did you watch the full fight of Zerdo and Joe? Okay, cool. So
I
I'm gonna let
did.
you lead this one. Give us your thoughts, and then I'll sort of come in after you.
Okay, so this was a very, very entertaining fight. Interesting. I mean, there's a lot of talking points about this fight, especially the weight. Zerdo coming in at 191. Obviously, he's such a big guy. And, the size was just really the thing that you notice so much in the ring. He's so much more of a bigger guy than Joe Smith. However, having said that, this was a good nip and tuck fight for most of the fight. Joe Smith from the early rounds was very much the aggressor, trying to get inside the long levers of Zerdo and banging, as you can see him there. He's using that bob and weave technique, and then he's coming in. He's got the straight left against the straight right against the southpaw, and using that very well. But yeah, look, well done to Joe Smith. He gave it his all, but eventually his engine did tend to wear down towards the end of the fight. Zerdo, on the other hand, seemed to pick his shots a little bit better from the outside, and just seemed to work on a sort of in and out basis. Now, Am I right? Did Zerdo change trainer?
Yeah, he's with Malik Scott.
There we go. Yeah. So what? There was a definite difference in the way Zerdo was fighting this time to where I've seen him fight previously, and it took him a couple of rounds to work out how to not get hit by Joe Smith because, as I said, Joe started really fast, using that bob and weave technique and then coming in with the combinations, the 2-3 punch combinations, the 3-4 punches, and hitting Zerdo with really some very heavy lever. But Zerdo was able to withstand that in the early rounds, and he worked on trying to get his boxing improved over the first 3 or 4 rounds, which he managed to do. So by about round 4 or 5, he was able to use boxing a lot better than I've ever seen him box, and actually just pick punches against the mobile Joe Smith. So Joe continued his hard work, give him credit. He worked for the entire fight of trying to use his head and bob and get inside and do the damage. And he was successful at doing that throughout the fight. But as I said, by about round 4 or 5, Zerda had worked it out, and he was able to allow Smith to unload his punches, but miss, and effectively use his long levers and pick his own shots, being first, not allowing Joe to get off first, not allowing him to get inside, and just create more gaps and be more effective with his long range attacks. And from then on in, he started to really put the bite on the gumshoe and put some good hard punches on Joe Smith. But Joe Smith, to his credit, was able to ride most of that. As I said, towards round 8 and 9, we saw the gas tank for Joe Smith appeared to look like he was emptying out. He still kept in the fight, but it was clear that Zerdo at this point was now in full throttle and able to just dominate those last rounds. But as I said, it was nip and tuck for certain rounds. Both were successful in every round. However, more rounds, obviously, clearly to me, were Zerdo rounds. As I said, I was very impressed by this new look Zerdo. Look, cruiserweight division, it's going to be interesting where he goes from now. We've got quite a decent crop of fighters here in the UK. I'd be a little bit worried. It is the honest answer. I would be a little bit worried if Zerdo was to creep across to these waters and start challenging some of our boys. But the titles are fragmented at the moment. Obviously, the king of the castle is Jai Opatai. Where Zerdo goes from now, we shall see. But I was impressed by what I saw, and a deserved victory for Zerdo Ramirez.
Well, before I give my thoughts, it was a WBA eliminator. I'm not sure if it was a final eliminator, but it was an eliminator. So I do think that will put him in line for Arsene Gulamarian's title. That being said, if you look at the two of them, even though it was at a catch weight of 193 pounds, I believe, Joe Smith Jr. actually looked better as a cruiserweight than Zerdo did. Zerdo looks very fleshy. Maybe not as much condition, but I think that also helped him because if we remember back in the day, like the fighters who always seem to have the biggest gas tanks and the engines, especially like a heavyweight and sort of light heavy cruiser, always kind of were just had a little bit of flesh, so they just had that fat for the energy reserves to kind of eat through when they was in the ring. And he's definitely kind of got that build. So he's clearly not a cruiserweight by trade. He literally is just someone who doesn't want to, I guess, do the work to get the weight off. But he is so big naturally. It's one of those ones. He's in the unfortunate situation where he's probably at this point in his life too big for light heavy, but too small for cruiser. And there's a few people that have been sort of unfortunate like that, especially over the last couple of years. Isaac Chamberlain is always like a perfect example for that. Someone that could never get down to light heavy, but he's always undersized when it comes up against like the natural cruiserweights. That being said, though, this fight was, even though it was a different type of Zerdo, it wasn't a Zerdo that went out there looking to sit in the pocket and destroy his opponents. I actually really liked what he done. Um, I've seen some other people say they didn't think he looked good in that one, but I mean, look, I disagree. I've never seen him box and move like that in any division. Maybe because he's always been the bigger guy and he's been trading on being the bigger guy. But I was really impressed by the lateral movement that he was employing, the defense, the way he was slipping shots. He wasn't loading up on anything, so maybe that's why his gas tank was sort of lasting. He was just, like everything. It was not nothing was like arm punches, but there was a lot of there was sort of a lot of just natural flowing. It was like, all right, it's not big power, it's just whatever comes out of the shot comes out of the shot. And obviously he was catching Joe Smith Jr. with quite a few of those, but I always knew that Joe would take it, and would, be ultimately very, very strong in there, very tough. He would swing heavy level, and there's numerous times where throughout, especially the second half of the fight, he was hitting Zerdo clean with shots. And Zerdo was riding, slipping, rolling, and sometimes taking them flush. But he wasn't getting hit with like shot after shot because his defense has improved a lot, especially since the Bivol fight. And while he's not going to be able to catch weight his way through the cruiserweight division, if this is sort of just one of those ones to kind of test the water to decide how you wanna move moving forward, I'm not mad at it. It would be interesting. I would actually love at this point to see him against some of the other big light heavyweights that are, cruiser. Like maybe him against a Badu Jack at this point, or even him against someone like Anthony Yard at a catch weight of like 190, where Yard ain't got to sort of drain himself down to 175. Clearly they can both make that weight, but just so you can kind of see them, with a lot more energy reserves. You can't say anything, oh, well, yeah, I had a hard weight cut, training camp was hard. It's always going to be hard, but if you're coming in closer to what you normally weigh, then you should, in theory, be, better engine, better punch resistance, better gas tank, and just better everything. So that would be something I'd be keen on if he wants to do a couple more catch weights with some of the smaller guys. But generally speaking, in terms of the actual cruiserweight division, again, like I said, even though he's a big guy, his frame isn't suited to a cruiserweight at this point in time. And I believe everyone except maybe for Alunga Makabu and potentially Badu Jack, who's obviously moved up to Bridgerweight now and vacated his belt. I think he'd be food for any other natural cruiser. Quite frankly, like Richard Riakpo, Jael Pataya, Lawrence Okoli, Chris Billum Smith, I think would be a competitive fight because neither of them, or because he doesn't move that well either, and he hasn't got the biggest of power. But I feel like that would be probably his easiest chance at getting a world title, because I don't even think him and Gulamarian is comparable. I think Gulamarian's too big and strong for him as well. But interesting thoughts. And I hope that does kind of answer your question, Philip, where you said how would he fare against the other cruiserweights. The natural cruiserweights, I think he gets beat by the majority of them. He might not get knocked out, but I think he gets fairly handled and dominated. But I do think his best options outside of Alunga Makabu, maybe like Tabisu Michunu and sort of those smaller cruiserweights and like Badu Jack, I think, everyone else takes him apart, except for possibly Chris Billum Smith, and that's only because their styles gel with each other. And the southpaw thing, I don't think Chris can really manage that, quite frankly. But you never know. Tony, you good to go to the next one, or you got anything you want to comment?
Yeah, no, if you want to move on, I'm just got one more upload, so if you could lead for about another couple of minutes for me.
All right. Okay, so I'm trying to think, where do we want to take it next? Actually, before we carry on with obviously the other stuff that was with Matchroom, I want to go to, for anyone who hasn't watched it, I won't be able to go into details about this huge amount because obviously I watched it live. I haven't seen any playbacks, and I think I forgot to record it. But the Friday night York Hall show from Queensbury, which was headlined
I
by
just got up. That was what I was just uploading. Go one
Oh,
more and then come back to that one.
okay. All right, Tony's got me. He's got me freestyling at the minute. Okay, so if we go to, okay, this wasn't really one that was on the docket, but I want to give a special mention to the there was a card Saturday morning for us in Japan. It was the I think it was Kamida Promotions. I doubt most people on the stream would have seen any of the fights. I mean, I haven't even seen them. I wasn't able to get my Amoeba app working because you need you need Express VPN, and I've got Surfshark, and Surfshark just wasn't playing ball, unfortunately. But there was the Shigeoka brothers who was on the card. So there's Yudai and Jinjiro Shigeoka. Both of them won world titles. It's the first time I think two brothers have won world titles on the same show in the same weight class, if I'm correct. I think that's correct. I may be wrong with that one. But of the two of them, Jinjiro is he's the younger brother. He's like the more talented one of the two. But Yudai is sort of the older one. But I think Jinjiro is the taller one. They're like 5 foot. I think one of them's like 5 foot, and the other one's like 5'4", or they're 5'1" and 5'4", something like that. But they compete in, I think it's minimum weight. In Japan. But yeah, Jinjiro, he won via knockout. I think he was fighting the guy. I think the guy's name was Villanova, but I can't remember his first name. And Yudai was facing Pechmani CP Freshmart, who's a Thai fighter. I'm not going to get into the history of who's who, but ultimately he was like long reigning champion in the division. I think he was like 40 wins with 1 loss or something along those lines. And Yudai was only 7-0 at the time with 5 stoppages, but he went to 8-0. So obviously, in Japan, you get a couple gimmies in your first 2 or 3 fights, and then after that, they step you up pretty harshly to see if it's like sink or swim. That's definitely what they should do in the UK, and what they definitely need to do in the US and everywhere else around the world. Like if you're good enough, it doesn't matter about how many fights you had, and you just get stepped up gradually. So yeah, for anyone who hasn't had a chance to see those, if you can maybe go on YouTube, hopefully there might be the Shigeoka brothers was on there. Also Tamake Kamida as well. He fought a guy called Larato Dlamini, who's a South African who was 19-2 at the time of the fight. And Kamida was, I think, 40-3. And funny enough, I think it was his dad's promotion or his brother's promotion. So a lot of people was expecting him to get consideration on the cards, and that wasn't the case. He lost via split decision. So yeah, sometimes family doesn't mean doesn't mean much when it comes to the judging, but that's how it should be. But Lamini now obviously gets to he gets to sail off, quote unquote, into the sunset, do better things, just raise his profile a bit more. Congrats to him. That's pretty much all I got to say about that. If you're not sort of finished with that, Tony, then I'll talk about some more of the Matchroom stuff. Yeah. Okay. So a big shout out to Cameron Vong, who made his debut on the before the bell portion of the Matchroom card. That was, to me, a very composed performance. I think I said in my weekend wrap that he kind of reminded me a little bit of both Dmitry Bivol and Bektamir Melikuziev in the way that he fights. Now he's obviously he's an orthodox fighter, sorry, but like the range that he was keeping for me was very much sort of a Bivol, the way that he was sort of bouncing in and out of range, sometimes holding his feet, but and but the way he was throwing the shots to the body reminded me very much of a Bektamir, just without, I guess, the wild arcing shots to get a lot of the talking. But that's kind of the style I sort of saw. That's from my, my opinion, but I'm sure other people may have slightly different view on that. Also, there was by the bookies' terms, it wasn't an upset, but I thought there was a fight happening in Canada it was a Yvonne Michelle Promotions. So it was Evelyn Bermudez, who was Daniela Bermudez's younger sister. She was facing Kim Clavel for, I believe it was the WBO and the IBF. What titles were they fighting for? I think it was flyweight titles, or the light flyweight titles. I was surprised. I thought that Kim Clavel would win based off of experience, a little bit of speed and sort of combination punching, but I was concerned that, Evelyn was like the much bigger girl, probably the more heavy-handed. I spoke to, my good friend Julius from Ring IQ. He kind of agreed with me in terms of how we saw the fight going. But Kim Clavel lost on a split decision. But it was a very, the split decision. You had Evelyn Bermudez. She got 2 cards that was 96-94, but Kim Clavel's card that she got was 98-92. I haven't seen the fight, so now I really need to see the fight, because those scorecards just seem a bit, they seem a bit odd to me. I need to kind of assess how they came to that conclusion. But overall, I got that prediction wrong. But good for Evelyn. Obviously, she's probably in that division. She can probably beat a better star than maybe some of the others that are down there. Obviously, she's fought Costa Valle before, and she's in line to basically be fighting the rest of the sort of flyweight. She could end up fighting Sanisa Estrada when she moves up. She could fight Marlon Esparza now if she wants to. She could move up a couple pounds and fight her. So there's a sort of a lot going on there. And then Sarah Mahfoud also, she got a points victory over Marcela Acuna, which wasn't surprising because Acuna is 46 now and Mahfoud is 34. And Acuna, basically, she's just a person whereby she can still beat the rest of the division, but when it comes to sort of any form of step ups, that nowadays it's not really her. She just can't keep the pace with them, and that's pretty much everything else kind of summed up outside of the main stuff. Tony, we good, or have I still got more fights to talk about? One more, okay. Okay, so I'm not sure. Tony might want to speak about this one, but I'll actually no. Let's talk about Hopi Price and what's the guy's name? I know his surname's Cargill. I can't remember the first name, so apologies for anyway. If someone could put it in the chat, I'll mention it in a moment. But it was funny because Hopi Price was talking very sort of spicy in the press conference, how he's just levels above this guy. Like, this guy's not, he's not sort of fought anyone ultimately, but it's a guy with an undefeated record with more professional fights than you've had. You got to kind of respect them. And I feel as if the first sort of 3 to 4 rounds, Hopi Price just wasn't, I'm not going to say he wasn't at the races, but he just couldn't adapt to, I guess, this guy that wasn't on his level. Like the way, I guess the way that the punches, the angles that those punches were coming from just weren't to his liking. He took some really hard shots, especially in the first half of the fight. He showed he's got a decent chin, so we'll give him that. But as you can see here, he was also he was a bit, I'm not going to say it was dirty, but he was doing things like there. You could see a little slight low shot and then just leaning over the person, sort of holding them down and then, hitting them as they're rising. But it was effective. The referee didn't call it, so it was clearly right. But he knows now how to scrap. It's not just about fighting and hit and not get hit for Hope. He's very good when it comes to fighting dirty as well if he needs to, fighting on the inside. At times, you saw that his pivot game in the center of the ring. He was really good at pivoting around the target. Who was it? Connor Cogill. Thank you very much for that. You man are done for giving me his first name. I couldn't remember it. And yeah, it was one of those performances where he had a bit of a, like I said, he came through his little mini crisis, but ultimately he did what he needed to do. He even got the stoppage. Now I predicted it was going to be a decision victory, and he got the stoppage in. Was it an 8-rounder or was it a 10-rounder? I think it was an 8-rounder, and he ended up getting the stoppage in the last round, which is always the way. But he's clearly been working on sitting down on his shots a little bit more now than he was previously. So yeah, overall, I'll give him his props. That was probably his first proper step up, if we're going to call it that. He came through it with the stoppage. Be keen to see what they do with him next. I doubt they're gonna, maybe after that fight now, they're not gonna accelerate his progression. They might not so much pump the brakes on it, but knowing Dave Caldwell, he's definitely gonna be cautious, maybe to want one more in and around this level to see if the improvements were made, rather than moving and stepping him up to the next one. But yeah, pretty decent fight. Again, Tony, I don't know if you saw it. Don't know if it was one you're interested in talking about.
Yeah, so it was a 12-rounder. Stopped in the 12th round of the 12th.
Okay.
Again, all I saw was highlights. I didn't see any of the action of the in-between rounds because they kind of jumped a couple of rounds. It looked like it was pretty much the Hopey Price show in terms of dominating the pace of the fight, the action within the fight. From what I saw, he seemed to be totally in control for most of the rounds.
That's not how the fight was at all.
Yeah, I was just about to say, Corgill did look like he was up for the fight. So we did see action where he's engaging with Hopey and causing him a bit of trouble. But overall, from again the rounds that I saw and it being skewed by the provider, I did see a very comprehensive looking performance from Hopey where he was able to control the man and eventually stop him in the 12th round. There were, so a decent ending to the fight for Hopey in that, look, it showed that you could go to 12 rounds. It showed that you still carry threat even into the 12th round. So let's see where he goes next.
Okay. Do you want to go? Actually, I might as well finish off the rest of the Matchroom stuff minus the main event, and then we'll. Okay. I think there's only one fight left to really talk about. Obviously, shout out to Janae Boston and Nico Levi's. They both got victories. Boston via knockout, via KO in the 4th round, I think it was. I believe it was the 4th, which I think I'd had down on my on basis picks. I think I predicted that. And Levi's won via decision. So yeah, all cool there. Right. So if we talk about now Kieran Conway versus Linus Adofia. Now, I may be the minority and probably one of the only ones who feels this way. And obviously I did see a comment. I saw a tweet from Linus Adofia saying that he agreed with Howard Foster's decision. That basically, look, yeah, his eye was closed. He said he still felt he could have gone on, but ultimately, for his safety, it was probably right to be stopped. Now, that being said, I feel that the fight itself was quite competitive. Some people have said that they had Kieran Conway totally bossing and dominating the fight, and Linus Adofia, like they felt that he froze in the moment. I mean, I disagree. I felt like it was, competitive, nip and tuck. Obviously, Linus was on the back foot. I feel like he was trying to walk Kieran Conway into traps. Kieran was doing well by avoiding the majority of them, and ultimately he was also being busy, which is always looks good in the in the eyes of the judges. Now, obviously, on a couple of the times where Linus lunged in to try and get off it to try and get his offense off is what happened when he ended up basically just walking into a very stiff ramrod jab into his right eye, which is what caused the initial sort of the initial swelling to start coming up. And I gotta wonder if the corner had, if they had an inswell, if they had an iron or anything, because the way that I swell up is like if you would have put cold compression on that, it wouldn't have, I don't think it would have swollen as badly. I felt like there needed to be something to get some of that fluid out of there, and they to me just seem kind of ill-equipped to deal with it. Maybe because that's not something that usually happens to him, so they didn't think it might be something to need. But I don't feel like it was I don't feel like they were suitably prepared for that. But that being said, I had the fight close. I had it 3-2 to Conway at the time of the obviously of the stoppage, as it happened right at the start of the sixth round. But you know, Udofia to me was in there. He was making Conway miss. He was riding, slipping, riding, and rolling a lot of shots as well. His jab was effective and was keeping Conway at bay for the most parts. You know, he threw the backhand a couple of times, and it was, you know, everything was I felt like he was looking to try and build into the fight after sort of the fifth to sixth, seventh round, and hope that he could basically sort of dominate on the back stretch. Now, I did say prior to that, him sort of taking a bit of time to get into the fight would ultimately could be something that could cost him. But I felt his natural experience and just his rhythm fighting would be enough to basically to get Kieran Conway out of his rhythm and basically just win the fight fairly comfortably on points, like a 116, 112, maybe even a 115, 113 if you wanted it to be like a bit more close. But no, Kieran Conway ripped up the script. He can't say, oh, it wasn't just. Ultimately, he done what he needed to do to get that stoppage. But yeah, I just felt that it could have carried on. At least give him another round, because he wasn't moving like every time the jab was being thrown, it was landing. He wasn't moving like he couldn't see out of the eye. So give him the opportunity to, you know, give him one more round, and at that point, you know, or assess it halfway through the round. Then if he's not avoiding anything and you can clearly see that he just can't get out of the way of stuff, then, you know, then you can kind of wave it off. But I felt for him to do it like that, I didn't like it personally, but that's me. Obviously, that might be a bit of my Howard Foster bias coming out. I don't know, but Tony, I mean, go for it. What did you think?
Yeah, so I kind of have to disagree with you on that one, because I felt that the fight was stopped at the right time. I thought the damage to the eye was uncontrollable by the point it was stopped. You know, I saw, I did put a picture up in the stills that I loaded of the eye at the end of the fight. And as you said, you know, Linus himself has said, you know, he thinks it was a sensible stoppage. I just felt that at the point in the fight, I didn't see sufficient from Linus to sway me to feeling that you're about to make this huge comeback. You know, Kieran Conway for me was very dominant, very, very dominant. You know, using it. He didn't even throw the jab effectively. He was effectively just holding the hand and lining up Udofia for the right hand. And Udofia had to get in there, but it was to his detriment, because every time he get in, he gets smashed. And Conway used, you know, nice crisp right hand left hook combination as Udofia was coming in. He kind of suckered him in. He was like saying, "Come on, I've got my hand out here. You can see what you can see. Come and get it." And Udofia was trying, but he was always falling short in the early rounds. You know, 1, 2, 3. You know, he's falling short consistently, and that's just allowing Conway to consistently hit him back with that straight backhand, and that caused the damage to me. Once the damage is caused, you know I'm going for the eye. I'm going for the eye, and it just ended up being that I couldn't take the damage that was being caused, and I couldn't see. As I said, Linus, I like him. I was rooting for him, but in this fight, he was not enough in it for me to be able to say he deserved to go any further than that point in the round where, you know, that I was considered too much to carry on with. I'd rather see him take the loss now, recover, come back, and think about how he would perform another day and rebuild. But I just don't see how he was going to come back, and didn't see enough to warrant him carrying on.
2 seconds into the round, this, I don't know. It feels like, I mean, look, you know what? If it was more like what happened with Joe Joyce, obviously he came out for the sixth, and they were, you know, obviously they're fighting, and he's still getting popped in the eye, and it's looking bad. So then the ref stops it and goes over to the corner. That was one of the few Howard Foster ones I agreed with, but I just feel that it right at the start of that round. If anything, if he was going to do that, you might as well have just waved it off at the end of the fifth, in my opinion. But cool. I won't argue. That's fine. Right. So now that we kind of gone through that, I want to breeze through the TNT Sport Queensbury card. Now, I did want to give it some attention because, as I said, there were some really good fights on this card. I want to talk just initially, just a quick plug for Masood Abdullah against Mark Leach. Now, in the first couple of rounds of that fight, I was it was weird because Masood Abdullah, I felt like he was being outclassed by Mark, but he was basically on a steamroller setting. He's like, I'm just gonna walk through anything you've got because you've only got like 4 stoppages on your record. I'm gonna take whatever you give, and even if like maybe I walk into a jab here or there, like it's not gonna hurt. I'm just gonna keep coming for you. I'm gonna drain your energy, drain your gas tank, and I'm in the process. I'm gonna throw big shots that eventually are gonna stop you from progressing in this fight, and that's ultimately what he did. He busted up Mark Leach, just broke him down, caught him with some really heavy shots, especially every time he backed him into a corner. Mark Leach did well to try and ride some, block some, but he was just taking heavy shots throughout. I think it ended up getting stopped in the 7th or the 8th round. His corner pulled him out, I think, at the end of the 7th. And ultimately, at that point, it was a sensible move because he was just from round 3 up until that point, he was just literally taking a beating every round, and he was just in survival mode. He's normally able to outbox people, but as he just couldn't keep Masood Abdullah off of him, the gas tank was only wearing down. It was only going one way, and the corner obviously done the right thing for him there. I guess also separately, I want to just give another shout out to Ellis Zorro. Big up to Fight Fan TV. Danny, I know he's had him on the neutral corner before. I did try to speak to him after the event, but he I think he had a cut that he needed to go and get stitched up, and I wasn't basically gonna wait around. It was already close to midnight at this point. Now, one thing I actually didn't remember is that I met Ellis a few years back. Basically, he's one of my cousin's best friends. He was at my cousin's birthday party. One of my cousins was actually there in attendance. I saw him and his girlfriend. I spotted them initially, or I spotted her. I didn't see him, but he sent me a picture. He's like, yeah, I can see you down by ringside. So anyway, it's enough of that. Getting to this fight. So you had Ellis Zorro. Now, I felt like he struggled a bit in this fight, especially when he decided to try and sit in the pocket. When he was boxing and moving, he was controlling the pace quite clearly and quite comfortably. But I felt like he was trying to sit on the inside, either to maintain energy or to try and sit down on shots and increase his KO record. He was 16-0 with 7 KOs. I guess he was trying to make it 17-8. But considering that Luca Diortenzi had never been stopped before, that probably just wasn't the right tactic. He was very limited. He only had a left hook. Basically, every time he would shoot off of anything, he was only looking for a left hook. And even myself and some of the other people, some of the other fighters, everyone in the arena was just like, all he's looking for is that left hook. Just keep your right hand up and you'll be fine. In the third round, I don't know what happened, and I need to try and see it again if I can, but it appeared he either caught an innocuous shot or some kind of clash of heads, but he ended up stumbling all the way back onto the ropes, and Luca Dortenzi rushed at him and was just swinging wild shots trying to sort of get him out of there. But Ellis had some good upper body movement. He was riding, slipping, rolling, and managed to avoid almost every shot in the salvo, and he managed to get himself back composed afterwards. I would like to see it again to kind of see what had happened. But yeah, he won the fight. I disagree with the scorecards. One of them I think was like a 99 to 91, and I think the other two were 98 to 92, or there was two 99 91s and one 98 92. To me, the fight was a lot closer, and he made it that way. I had it 96 94 to him. He did win it, but like it was one of those just about kind of things, as opposed to as comfortable as those scorecards had it. But yeah, he's got some he's got some growing to do. He obviously needs to realize there's not everyone you can get out of there, and he needs to play to his strength, which at this case was, if you're against like a plodding guy, box and move. Not necessarily just box on the back foot, but hit and not get hit. That's just the kind of way I saw it. So, but big up to obviously Ellis anyway, former Lewisham lad, even though he don't live in the bits anymore. He's not that far. Romney's only up the road, so big ups to him. And obviously, yeah, I guess I'll see him at the next family function with my cousin. Now, the fight that I want to talk about on this one, just before we end up getting to the main event. If you haven't seen this fight, please, I don't know if they will be on YouTube, because I looked on TNT and Queensbury and it's not on there, but I'm sure you can find it somewhere. Go and look at Joshua Frankham, versus George Davey. Without a shadow of a doubt, it was fight of the night. So Joshua Frankham was 8-0, George Davey was 8-0-1, and from the moment the fight started, you could tell that it looked, from the outside looking in, Frankham looked very nervous and very tense and upright. His body, he just seemed tense. It looked like he wasn't loose, he wasn't relaxed. He was biting on feints. He was just trying to sort of throw big shots from the start of the fight all the way sort of to the end. It's like he was just looking for one shot, and his eyes just looked wide. He just looked wired for the entire time. Whereas Davey, now, he was very, very calm and composed and very loose in the ring. His in and out game with the footwork was a lot cleaner. His jab was hitting the target a lot crisper. He probably wasn't delivering the heavy thudding power punches with the backhand as often, but to me, he was controlling a lot of the fight, especially in sort of the first half. And for the first 3 rounds, I had him winning all 3 of the first 3, just by distance, by making Frankham miss and then making him pay afterwards. Frankham, to me, he came back in the 4th round with a nice little salvo of shots that sort of came in. But Davey was composed. He was riding and slipping quite a few of them as well. He took some shots, but he also stayed composed and just stayed comfortable, stayed on his feet. The 5th round was more like the 4th. Frankham got back into the fight and was really sort of starting to apply the pressure to George Davey at this point, and he felt like the fight was about to turn, the tide was about to turn. But then in the 6th round, to me, it looked a little bit more like a stumble, but I guess a shot did sort of land at the same time. But George Davey ended up getting the knockdown on Frankham in the 6th. So he got counted on that one, which obviously put him up a lot higher on scorecards. But then you had, but he came back, and you could almost feel like he maybe won the rest of the round. So while you could still have given it a 10-8, you could have also maybe given it as a 10-9 because he did claw a little bit back. But you had that one. Then ultimately in round 7 and 8, Joshua Frankham basically poured, he basically just emptied the tank in those last 2 rounds. And yeah, there was a couple of times in there where he had, he did have George Davies sort of, I won't say wobbling like he was about to knock him out, but he had him in some trouble, in some issues. Throughout both of those rounds, and in the 8th especially, Davey used some of his survival nous and his upper body movement and his calm composure to get through up until the very end of the round itself. I had it scored 70. I had it scored 75-76 to George Davey, but I think it was the referee was the judge. I think it was Bob Williams. He scored it 76-75 the other way to Frankham. So I'm assuming he must have given him 5 rounds. It must have been 5-3, which would have normally been, I think, 77-75, but with the knockdown, obviously 76-75. I disagree with it. Also, there was a bunch of Queensbury employees. I won't mention any names, just in case, I'm not trying to get any of them in trouble. But after the fight, they also said to me that they thought that George Davey won the fight as well. So yeah, and the people beside me and some of the people beside me I saw on Twitter as well. Some people also said they felt George Davey won the fight, but it was a close one. So it wasn't the type of thing where you feel like it was, a robbery or anything like that. But if you haven't seen that fight, to me, just my personal opinion, it was only 8-rounder, but that was the fight of the weekend, in my opinion. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, please go. Feel free to watch it. But yeah. With that being said, because I know that Tony didn't see it, we can go straight to the main event. So Tony, I will let you take this one away, as I'm sure you watched this in all its glory.
Yeah, so let's go. Lee Wood against Warrington, Nottingham Forest versus Leeds United. What a fight for the ages. I mean, from we all seem to know the blueprint for Josh Warrington, the rough and tumble inside, technique, the bobbing inside, the work rate that we expect from Josh. Also, he's a crafty fighter. He uses the dark arts very well, especially the use of the head. But he'll hit you with an elbow, he'll step on your toe, he'll knee you, whatever he can get away with, he'll get away with. And that's worked for his career so far quite well to date. Obviously, of recent times, he's come a cropper. But I've got to say, this was very much a fight that I was not expecting to see, in terms of the way that Josh Warrington was able to manhandle Lee Wood in the early stages of this fight. His combination work was at its best. You could see that he had been working really well in the gym. I think he had Dave Coldwell in his corner. So it was, I think, a change of trainer again that had impetus on the way that the fighter fought. And as I said, for the first, 4 or 5 rounds, Josh was all over Lee Wood. He wouldn't give him a moment to breathe. And obviously, Lee wants to box. He knows he's the better boxer. However, I got to give credit to Josh Warrington. Don't often do so, but I have to. He did really well in the early rounds. He scuppered everything that Lee tried to work with. He negated his jab. He used good footwork to get inside, and effectively beat up on Lee Wood in those early rounds, hurting him very much with very tough body shots and hooks. But yeah, what a comeback from Lee Wood. And we've come to realize that this is a kid who can take big punishment, as we saw against Michael Conlon. Suffer early losses and then come back in a fight, readjust, and have a devastating end to a fight. So, look, well done to Lee Wood. He pulled out another one from out of the fire. A fantastic finish to finish Warrington. Now, there has to be talk about the premature stoppage. Unfortunately, we have, how many have we talked about on this show so far today? 2 at least?
Just one.
Just one, okay. So this is the second one. This one, unfortunately, I don't think was right. I thought you had to give Josh Warrington in a world title fight. You have to give him the opportunity to go out on his shield. I'm sorry, but that was a bad stoppage to me, and it ruined what was a good fight. I thought, look, Lee Wood looked great at the end of it, but you have to give Josh Warrington, after what he had done in the previous rounds, every opportunity to come back out and try and rectify what was going on, because he was way ahead in this fight. On to you, my friend.
Well, hold on, stop the footage a moment. Let's dissect that, and then I'll go into sort of my thoughts. As we were saying earlier, sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't. This is one where I disagree. The reason I disagree is because there was too many things that took place at that time for the ref to believe that he was in a fit state to continue. Obviously, number one, he got up, even though technically there's been some issues about when the count was started, but ultimately he got up on, I think, 3 of the count. He's walking back to the corner. He stumbles at that time. His entire corner have jumped on the turnbuckles. He's got his back to the ref. He doesn't turn around until he hears 8, which we've already been told in the UK, you have to be up and shown to be willing to fight by the count of 8, not 9. That's the rule that they seem to go by. So if you know that to be the rule, you need to abide by it. Now, ultimately, the round isn't over. Even when the bell rings, the round isn't over until the referee says that the round is over. So if he was knocked down right on the bell. There's no save by the bell option. It says you can't be saved by the bell. So from you can't be saved by the bell, you have to adhere to the referee's count. That's just what you're supposed to do. In that instance, he didn't adhere to the count because he got up, he turned his back to the ref, put his hands on the ropes, like to say, almost in a motion of, yeah, this one ain't getting my way, kind of thing, like, so to speak. His entire corner is on the ringside apron, which they shouldn't be at that particular point because the fight isn't over. And yeah, all of that, all in all, the referee's counting and you're not looking at the referee showing that you're ready to carry on. In my opinion, I feel like he did the right thing. Now, it may have been wrong in the sense that maybe Josh was still comfortable to go on, and that may be the case, but he didn't display the characteristics of someone that was still fit to go at that precise moment. And as the round hadn't technically finished, as we just established, you have to show that you're willing to fight. So, yeah, in my opinion, it was his own fault why the referee waved it off. So while he may have been okay to continue, I personally think he was out. I don't think he was lucid. I don't think he kind of knew where he was until afterwards. But yeah, that's my particular opinion on that. Now, if we're going to talk about the fight, because I know Tony's put the footage on way too early, but ultimately, I feel that it was a sense that Lee Wood, I felt, was doing well in the first couple rounds. I felt like the first round was a bit scrappy, but he ended up with the better and the cleaner work in the first round. Second round, as he properly switched southpaw, Josh Warrington couldn't adjust to fighting a southpaw. It wasn't something I'm assuming he prepared for, and Lee Wood was just shooting that southpaw left to the to the stomach and to the head of Warrington at will. He just couldn't couldn't get past it. In the third round, he just decided to almost like just to bulldoze through that tactic, but Leewood also ended up going back into orthodox. I guess southpaw was making him think too much, and he went back to his normal stance, and that just allowed Josh Warrington his moment to get in on the chest of Leewood, and ultimately he was just he dominated. He outfought him, he outpunched him, outboxed him. Better body shots. There was a couple of rabbit punches. The head did come in a few times as well, but ultimately he was just busy. He was just I feel like he was just beating the will out of Lee Wood at the time. That's what it looked like. Lee Wood started complaining about a few bits and pieces. It just looked like almost like, okay, I don't really want to be here. But in true Lee Wood fashion, in true warrior and champion spirit, he found not just a shot from the gods, because it's not that, but he found his moment and he detonated and he executed something that he's done numerous times. He's got a get out of jail free card, and that get out of jail card is his power and his accuracy. And ultimately, with the Josh Warrington getting the point taken off in the 7th round, maybe he started to get a bit more desperate. I feel like maybe that caused him to let his defense slip a little bit, but that split moment was all Lee Wood needed, because again, he found the perfect shot as Josh was coming in as well, which doubled the impact. And as as he visibly stumbled, you then saw Lee Wood unload another 4. There was another 3 punches that connected. There was a 5th that landed that sort of grazed him, but he caught it on the gloves. But yeah, he took 2 shots on the way down, and I think that's what caused the major damage, was those last 2 shots. But yeah, it was a brilliant comeback. It's a fight that I definitely think they could argue to have a rematch at 130 for both of them, probably at City Ground next year. It seems like the most logical sense. But yeah, overall, I won't say it was a great fight, but it was a very interesting, intriguing fight. It ended the way I thought it was going to end, but the fight didn't play out the way I thought it was going to play out, and I did think it would last a little bit longer. I thought it would go towards the end of the fight, closer to like rounds 10 and 11, because Josh Warrington has always kind of shown a pretty durable chin. But I said that it would be sort of not cagey, but it would be competitive in sort of the first 3 or 4 rounds, and then I felt that Josh Warrington would take over, and Lee Wood would have to come through some form of crisis, but he would nail him with something heavy in sort of rounds 10 or 11, and eventually, have enough left in the locker to basically just unpick that lock, dent that chin, and take Josh Warrington out. So I got the method right, just a couple rounds earlier than I expected. But Tony, it looks like I know that you want to disagree with some of my assessment there. Go for it. You're muted.
As I said earlier, we don't always have to agree. You feel that the fight was rightly stopped. I feel that he should have been given the opportunity. A few people have mentioned in the chat the fact that his hands are on the ropes and his corner are all up on the turnbuckle, ready to put the stool in and rescue him. So at that point, you're like, well, the bell has rung. Why not just let the thing go its course and see what happens? If he comes out the next round, fine. If he don't, you haven't lost anything.
But he's got to show that he's ready to fight, Tony. He didn't show that he was ready to fight. He didn't show that he was ready to fight. Like, he's got to show at that moment that he's still ready and fit to continue, even though the bell's rung.
Technically, the bell has gone.
But that doesn't mean anything. We know that you can't be saved by the bell.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if he gets knocked down, obviously, if the bell's gone and if the ref's not counting, that's a different story. But
Yeah.
from the refs counting, you have to abide by the same rules as if it
Yeah.
was in the middle of the round. He
Yeah.
knows
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Even you
I
know that.
mean,
Come
look,
on.
it is what it is. The decision is done. I personally feel I would have liked, knowing that the corner are there. You know, I've seen the corner run out and catch a man who's falling over and bring him back to the corner. I've seen a ref. If I'm being honest, I've seen a ref take a knocked out fighter back to his corner so that he can fight the next round. But at least in this situation, I feel like you're there. The corner on the turnbuckle. Let's give him another chance to see how this goes, because this is an enthralling fight. This is a fight that is, it's a big fight for one. Yeah, it's a world title. Nobody wants to get shortchanged in a world title fight. And I just feel like, you know what? When the fighter is ahead, give him a leeway. Yeah, okay. Who would have argued if they'd have said, come out the next round? I don't think anybody here would have been going, oh, the referee should have stopped that. No.
Well,
But I
hold
can
on.
see your point.
No. But you know what? The thing is, you say that, and I can see what you're saying there. But remember, what did they say about Kid Galahad against Kiko Martinez? That they should have never let him out the following round because he literally took one shot and then got poleaxed by one shot. There wasn't a salvo. It was the first shot that got thrown, landed because he wasn't there. And they said there was no reason to let him out. So it's one of those ones. It is always you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I get that. So there is no real right or wrong answer. It's perspective. But I do know for a fact that people complained and said that they should have never let him back out into the ring after obviously the heavy knockdown that he suffered in his fight. So yeah, people do complain at times.
Yeah. I mean, and going back to that Kid Galahad fight, it's a world title fight. Remember Deontay Wilder made every excuse under the sun about, he sacked Mark Breland because he felt he shouldn't have been stopped. I want to go out on my shield. And I think when you're in a world title fight, if it's a, domestic scrap or it's just a normal run-of-the-mill fight, I understand it. But in world title fights, I feel like, especially if you're in the fight, you need to be understanding of the situation that you're in. And if you need to stop it, it needs to be justifiable. I just felt it wasn't.
Okay, fair enough. Well, obviously we've seen what the chat have had to say, so we've put up a majority of that. Ladies and gentlemen, I mean, look, that's the end of the discussions. That's the end of the action. I think we've covered pretty much everything. I know Tony didn't see a lot of it, so there wasn't as much back and forth from us as you may have liked. But we're out of here in a pretty decent amount of time, and everyone gets to kind of go to their bed fairly early from us. So appreciate you all for watching. Again, for the new people who weren't here at the start of the show, as I had stated, I did get a Frank Warren interview, so that will be up on the channel tomorrow. I'm assuming tomorrow. Denzel Bentley also interviewed Denzel, and I spoke with Nick Ball as well. So make sure you guys tune in for that. To answer your question, Philip, and we'll get to the ticker tape in a moment. Any prediction for KSI versus Tommy Fury? We don't do predictions on this. However, if you check my channel on Friday, I may do a prediction for that fight. Not 100% sure because there is actually some other boxing on, but that is the biggest thing of the weekend. It might boost my metrics if I talk about it. Tony, go for it.
So I don't like this YouTube boxing at all, but Tommy Fury is gonna wash KSI. I'm convinced. If he doesn't, I will be so shocked. But there's no way KSI is even remotely should be in this fight. Tommy Fury should absolutely wash KSI. And if he don't, I hope Tommy Fury retires. I don't like the guy anyway because he's not a boxer. You know, he's going around making hella money, which I can't. You know, look, how you make your money is up to you. And well done to all of you guys making money in the you know, the Misfits arena. But me and Tommy Fury, just nah. But I don't normally get involved, and I'm not gonna watch the fight. But I just have seen enough of these Misfits trying to make out like Tommy Fury some kind of scrub. He's easily the best boxer out of the lot of you. And he's gonna wash KSI. That's my say.
Just for everyone, anyone potentially watching, you know, Kalle Sauerland, anyone else from Team Wasserman, I do not share the same views as Tony. His views are his own. I will still be looking for potential accreditations should they come along. So yes, I understand his point, and I support his right to have that, but don't necessarily say that the thoughts and opinions of both the hosts are their own, and we are not a collective or a conglomerate. I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, 100%. That is totally all the Pugilist Boy. That is nothing to do with base.
Thank you very much, Ellis. Thank you very much for the whole the interviewing thing. It's one of those ones. It's gonna, I don't know. We're not sure how it's gonna carry on, but yes, while we're doing it, and while have the opportunity and the time to actually get some of these done, it is entertaining and whatnot. So thank you very much for that. Declan says quick shout out to Stevie Levy. Yeah, I didn't even see the fight against her and Laura Grazeb, but to be honest, I knew that Stevie was going to lose that fight, so it wasn't one I needed to watch. Stevie, she's a little firecracker. I actually enjoy watching the interviews, but Laura Grazeb is just too skilled. She's got the amateur background that Stevie doesn't have, and it was always going to be an uphill battle for her. But yeah, big ups to her. And obviously fight fans there as well. Now we get to my ticker tapes. As you can see down below there, BaseDaKID, the hardcore casual on YouTube. There will be a video tomorrow. I didn't have any content last week apart from basis picks on the weekend wrap, but there will be an episode out probably either in the morning or the afternoon. Not sure when I'm going to record it, but yeah, there will be one there. On Instagram, just BaseDaKID, but again, don't look on there for much boxing stuff. Don't really use it for that. And yeah, on X as well, it's B_A_S_E, or just type in BaseDaKID and I'm the first person to show up. So and yeah, Declan, obviously you're saying she's a local hero. Like I said, big ups to Stevie. I just knew that was not gonna work for her, but yeah, I'm glad that she's willing to take those tough fights anyway. She's already shaping up to be a female Derek Chisora. Tony, yeah, switch to your ticker tape, man.
So guys, there I am, Pugilist Boy on YouTube and X, formerly Twitter, Pugilistic Boy on Instagram.
Lovely. All right. Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna jump out now. But yeah, enjoy the rest of your night, whatever you're doing. I'm gonna go to the gym shortly. So big ups to all of you. Thanks for watching. Next weekend, we'll decide if we're gonna talk about Misfits. I'll watch the show. I'm gonna watch the show. I don't think Tony will. So yeah, we may not be able to dedicate much time to it, or he might just turn up late. We'll see. But yeah, thanks, salute, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.